Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gordon Peterson. I've been covering news and asking important people, or people who think they're important, impertinent questions since 1969. But I can't think of a topic more important than the one we're about to address this morning. I thank you for joining us. This is the 14th annual Federal Interagency Holocaust Remembrance Program. This program is sponsored by 23 federal departments and agencies. We meet today to remember the willful murders of 11 million innocent human beings during World War II at the hands of Nazi Germany and its collaborators. These crimes were systematic and they were state-sponsored. We know about these crimes not only from the testimony of survivors and eyewitnesses, but also because the Nazis kept impeccable records. The evidence of the Holocaust is clear and irrefutable, despite claims to the contrary by some who can only be described as members of the lunatic fringe. You know the history. In 1933, President von Hindenburg names Adolf Hitler Chancellor of Germany. After Hindenburg's death, Hitler, leader of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazi Party, quickly establishes a totalitarian state, the Third Reich, under which the Nazis gained nearly unlimited power. Hitler had never made any secret of his hatred of the Jews. Now he was able to write his hatred into law and thus begin to carry out his plan for the extermination of all European Jews. And not only Jews, although they were his primary focus, but also gypsies, mentally and physically disabled people, communists, socialists, Jehovah's Witnesses, homosexuals, and others. It's a very long list. In 1933, there were more than 9 million Jews living in Europe. By 1938, German Jews who had contributed to the nation's science, business, and cultural life, who had served in its armed forces, who had graced its arts and music with their extraordinary talents, were no longer allowed to be part of the social and political life of the nation. On the night of November 9th, 1938, the Nazis began to deal with the Jews in earnest. It was Kristallnacht, the night of the broken glass, in Germany and Austria. Jewish homes, shops, towns, and villages ransacked, Jews beaten to death, 30,000 Jewish men hauled off to concentration camps, synagogues vandalized and burned. The New York Times wrote, "No foreign propagandist bent upon blackening Germany before the world could outdo the tale of burnings and beatings, of blackguardly assaults on defenseless and innocent people, which disgraced that country yesterday." Major nations protested, but there were no serious repercussions. After the June 1941 invasion of the Soviet Union, mobile killing units carried out the mass murder of Jews, Gypsies, Soviet and Communist Party officials, and others. The Einsatzgruppen, the mobile killing units, murdered more than 1 million Jewish men, women, and children. On June 20th, 1942, Nazi Party and German government officials met in a villa in the Berlin suburb of Wannsee to coordinate implementation of the final solution, which was the Nazis' code name for the deliberate destruction of Europe's Jews. By the end of World War II, the Nazis and their collaborators had murdered 2 out of every 3 Jews in Europe. How could this have happened? Simon Wiesenthal, the Nazi hunter, said God must have been on leave during the Holocaust. Elie Wiesel, who survived Auschwitz, Buchenwald, and other Nazi camps, says, "To remain silent in the face of such atrocities, to remain silent and indifferent, is the greatest sin of all." And so we're here to remember. To remember the Holocaust, to remember the genocide in Cambodia under Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge, to remember the ethnic killings of Albanians in Kosovo, of Muslims, Croats, and Serbs in Bosnia, the slaughter in Rwanda, and currently the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people in Darfur. Today's speakers will remind us of the past and keep us focused on the present. Our first speaker is Ruth Muszkiewicz-Weber, who was born in Ostrowiec, Poland on June 28, 1935. In 1939, at age 4, Ruth and her family were sent to a ghetto within Ostrowiec, where they lived for 3 years after Nazi troops invaded Poland. In 1944, Ruth, then 9 years old, and her mother were sent to Auschwitz concentration camp in Poland. They stayed there until the camp was liberated in January of 1945. So let's begin with Ruth Weber's personal story. You lived a fairly comfortable life until the Germans came, did you not?
Yes, I did. We had a very loving and comfortable home. My father was a professional photographer, and he was integrated into the city's population, and I had grandparents living 2 doors away from us with aunts and uncles, and it was a wonderful life.
And then the Germans came, and what changed?
And then Germans came, and there was fear in everybody's faces. There were constant rumors that people were systematically being killed, taken out of their homes. In fact, one incident was when my uncle, a 21 or 22-year-old young, handsome man, opened the door to a group of Germans that came in, and they let him stand there, and they walked into another apartment where an old tailor lived, and they took him out and they shot him for no apparent reason, and that's how they instilled fear in us.
So that they had closed off your town into a ghetto.
Into a ghetto.
And then they moved you at the age of 9, but there were some interim steps, weren't there?
Yes. When the ghetto was going to be liquidated, my father, being having connections, was able to get special permission to work in a camp where they were doing electrical appliances. And my father and my mother had permission to go there and work, and felt once that was done, then you were assured of safety. My sister was placed with a Gentile family because she was a very talented pianist, and through, again, connections, the people felt that my sister would be able to continue her education, and she was placed in a family where that did happen.
Right.
I was kind of sneaked into the camp. I was not supposed to be in the camp. There was no children allowed. And that was camp number 1.
Mm-hmm.
From there we were taken to another ghetto, which was Sandomierz, because there was a rumor that it was going to be a free city and Jews will be able to live there in peace. But it was just to the contrary. They gathered most of the Jews that were hiding in the areas and brought them in from other camps and just systematically took them to Treblinka. My father was not taken to that ghetto because he was out working. So only my mother and I went with the transfer. Actually, I was taken on the transfer because I was a child and wasn't supposed to be there. My mother could have stayed in camp, but my mother was always with me.
So, the rest of your family went to Treblinka, and
all of them. When the ghetto was dismembered, when they had decided to liquidate the ghetto, all the Jews from the ghetto went to Treblinka. My grandparents, my father, my grandmother from my father's side, my uncles, my aunt. There was cousins that also came in from other cities because ours was a better ghetto, if you can say that. They all went to Treblinka.
they all perished there.
They all perished. There was no camp in Treblinka. It was just a camp where they were gassed and burned.
And then at the age of 9, you went to Auschwitz.
I was taken to 2 other camps. I was in Strachowice, where we came into camp and there was typhus going on, and we all were sick with typhus. And then from there we went to Ostrovce Lager, the camp, because they needed workers for the ironworks and the brick factory. outside of our town. When they liquidated Ostrovets ghetto, we were taken to Auschwitz with my mother. My father was somewhere else. I don't know where my father was.
Yeah, your father perished.
He perished, but I did see my father in Auschwitz when he came in from another camp. And my father left with the last transport, the last march out of Auschwitz to Mauthausen.
What was life like in Auschwitz for a 9-year-old girl?
When we came in, I was with my mother, and I stand on the pals and was given the meager ration of food. Auschwitz was, when we arrived, a relatively clean camp. In other words, there was no lice as there were in many other camps, and we had that one dress, so we were always cold. Auschwitz was very foggy and chilly in the morning and very hot in the summer. We came in the summer, and the winter was extremely cold, and we had no clothes.
People were dying.
People were dying, and when they died, they were put into a block where the corpses were taken, and whenever the crematoriums were working, they cleaned out that barrack. But mostly the transports that were after us, that were coming in, and I would say the majority were from Hungary. They still have had a relatively normal life. There was one transport that came in, a wedding party. And when occasionally there was a selection, so some people came into the camp, but the majority of those transports went down this, it looked like a dungeon, into the dungeon, and gas.
Into the gas chambers.
Right. And then we saw the smoke billowing day and night. So we knew what was happening. I knew what was happening because things were being told around me. It was rather difficult for me to understand what does it mean to be dead. But seeing the dead bodies, and I certainly didn't want to wind up like that, so I did everything I could to hide and make myself invisible.
Did you ever say to yourself or to your mother, why are they doing this to us?
Oh, many times. And my mother didn't dwell, I don't remember her dwelling on it. What my mother did for me is that she tried to keep my mind occupied with things from home, that tomorrow will be better. And I think that's why I'm saying, because
of your mother.
Because of my mother, and because I don't think that it is possible to live through as a child, not just myself, but the other few that have survived, that didn't have somebody that was as there for me at all times, and trying to keep my mind on good things, on things that were happening at home, and talking about what life is going to be like tomorrow, not today.
But the others, I would have to assume many of them simply despaired of what had happened to them, the living conditions, the brutality of the guards, and so forth.
That's true, and many mornings we would go out, the children would run out first to see how many people just couldn't take it anymore and threw themselves against the electric wires.
Threw themselves on the electric, suicide essentially.
Absolutely, because they just could not endure the constant hitting and standing on appels, and not knowing when your turn will come to to be taken into the crematoriums, because we knew, at that point even I realized that once you go down that ramp, that you come up in smoke, that you do not come out at the other. And the way we did when we went in for the shower, when we originally came into Auschwitz. But the worst part in Auschwitz was when we were separated from our mothers. They came one day into the barrack and they said, we'll take the children out and put them in a separate barrack so the parents can have more sleep and they can work better. Well, we stayed there, I don't know if it was a week, 2 weeks, a month, I don't remember times. My mother would come and visit me whenever she could in the evenings, and she said to me one day that she was being sent out of Auschwitz to another camp.
Bad day.
And I thought I was grown up, and I looked at my mother and I felt that my world was coming to an end. But I thought that I was grown up, and I said to her, it's okay, Mother, you have to go, you have no choice. And anyways, you couldn't stop me from going up and smoke. So.
But your mother survived.
Yes.
And you survived.
Yes.
And then in 1955, you met your husband.
Correct.
Also a survivor of the Russian camps.
Right.
And now you have 3 daughters.
I have 3 daughters.
5 grandchildren.
And 5 grandchildren.
Do you or have you had through the years nightmares of your experience?
I have quite often nightmares. Especially when I speak about it. I try to enjoy my family, my children, and to be happy and thrilled and that I did survive and that I did continue that link of our family. It's just the only link that survived. Speaking to people, children that interview me occasionally, makes it very difficult for me, because not only does it bring the memories back, but also the feelings of the fear that I had then.
Well, thank you for your courage in speaking to us. I really appreciate it. John, you're on. Our next speaker is John Dow, who was born and grew up in the Duke region of southern Sudan. In 1983, a second civil war broke out in Sudan, where President Nameri decided to establish Islamic law throughout Sudan. So he governed from the capital city of Khartoum, located in the northern part of the country. In response to the Islamic law, the Sudan People's Liberation Army was formed in the southern Sudan to fight the government and gain independence for the southern part of the country, which is a region mostly populated by Christians and animists. In August of 1987, John Dow's village in the Duke region was attacked by government troops, but he escaped by running into the brush and hiding. More than 1 million people were killed in the war. John was featured in a 2006 documentary titled God Grew Tired of Us. I'm going to let John Dow tell us more about his 14-year-old journey from the Sudan to the United States, one of the lost boys of the Sudan. John, you're on.
Yes. Well, actually, it is something that we always think, and when we flash back, when it's the plight, we think about what happened some time ago, and here we are in America. It's sometimes you kind of like, when you're thinking about it, you're lost in thought, because I could sometimes find myself, maybe, am I in America or am I still running, you know? So, but
how did you survive, John? When you escaped at first, I mean, how did you feed yourself? How did you survive?
Well, it happened in 1987. when our village was attacked at night. And luckily I took my own way with my neighbors, a guy called Abraham. And as I was running with him, my parents and my other brothers sisters took their own directions. And of course we survived, and through that journey from our village to Ethiopia, it took us 3 months. But we only survived on eating wild fruits and roots of some plant and chewing grass so that we stay alive. And it was just like that. That was the survival part of it. I mean, eating part of it or getting food part of it. But also, there were no clothes that we were wearing. So at night, it is so cold and nothing to rub yourself with. And I remember always think, God, please let the sun come or daybreak so that the sun, will be a little bit warmer. So we went through that. Sometime we ate anything that we could find. Other people say it in America, if you go for 2 to 3 days without food, you're gonna die. You can never die. You will not die. Completely you cannot die. We went like 7 days with no food at all. It's only saliva. We swallowed, that was it. And we survived it through getting other things such as grasshopper. We hit it and then eat it. There were other, plant called abar and apai in my language. When you chew them, it is sweet like sugar cane. That's what we have, if you ever happen to go to where we used to be at that time, you could see all of that place. We chew it and then you could see right the residue on the floor, on the ground. So that's how we live, we survive. And sometimes there's no water to drink. Yeah. So I remember between a place called Pibor and Kong Kong, we thought there would be water there, but there was no water. So we ended up for like 2 days with no water. The third day, I thought I was going to die because my body turned white, and when I cried, there's no tears come out of my eyes. And I thought I'm going to die, but luckily, God made it in such a way that we got some mud, and then we ate mud, and it kept us until we got some water later. Yes, so that so that our throat could stay.
Let me ask you the question I asked Ruth. Did you say to yourself, why is this happening to us? What have we done to deserve this?
Well, I think that's when I even think I was saying to myself, this happened. Why do people, the Arab or the Muslim in the north, pursuing us and trying to, of course there was some ambush, and they beat us to complete all my body's blood. And I have to ask myself, why is this happening? And I always sometimes questioning God, why do you, God, let these people to be so powerful that they overwhelm? What's wrong we have done? That we sinned against you. But there was some other thought also, because before the attack, my family and of course the village became Christians. And that, of course, it has been said in the Bible. You go to Isaiah 18 from chapter 1 until the end of it. It says God will punish the people of Cush, or sometimes they may say Ethiopia or Sudan. And he said that this is the land that has been divided into two by longest river. And this is the land where people are tall and black and skinny. We thought that's us. And of course we still know that's the Southerners, the Southern Sudanese. Mm-hmm. And in the Bible it says later that God will bring our enemies and cut us down like grass, mow us down like grass. So our bodies will be the food for the bird in the summer, and the food for the bird, for the animal in the autumn. And God said that I will hear their cry, and then I will bring them back. I will send my messenger in a boat of reed, bring them back to the land that they will, their land, and they will give me offering on the mountain of Zion. There's no Zion in Southern Sudan. We thought that the Zion is the church where everybody believed in the Lord. So we knew that during that war, running away from one place to another, we knew that this is it. And we can't give up, because God knows one day He will bring us back so that we can give Him offering on the mountain of Zion. So this is what kept us going.
How did you get from there to here, to the United States?
Of course, 3 months from my village to Ethiopia, 4 years in Ethiopia, staying there, and we stayed there. After 4 years, and that is 1991, the government of Ethiopia was overthrown by the rebels who were based in northern Sudan, which means they say 7 days, leave our country. So when we tried to leave their country and we came to a border, we're coming back to Sudan, we came to a border, and there's a river called Gilo, infested with a lot of crocodiles in it. We didn't know that the Ethiopian new civilian government, as trooper following us, they came after us, and then one of the day they started shooting us right there. So we dived into the water, and you can see a lot of crocodiles. We were 27,000. By the time we crossed that river, we became only 18,000, which means about 9,000 died there, or eaten by crocodiles, drowned, or killed, or captured, or lost. So those 9,000 perished there, or completely no more. So we went back to Sudan. 9 months in Sudan, in the place called Pachala, controlled by the SPLA, Sudan People Liberation Army. They were so nice, helping us, to give us some food. When they ran out of food, all of us ran out of food, so we start selling our clothes, and then most of us became naked again. So we moved back. The government of Sudan sent bombardment into that area, bomb us twice a day. So we moved into Sudan. Took us 6 months from Pachala to Kenya, to the border of Kenya. And that was in 1992. So we stayed there in Kenya almost for 10 years, until almost at the end of 2001, I came to the United States. The American went there to Africa, and I think your government here, and of course the Christians and other people like us, they would want to bring us here, and that's how I came to Syracuse, New York.
And you have your wife is one of the lost girls?
Yes.
And you have a 5-month-old daughter?
Yes.
And you're pursuing a degree at Syracuse University?
That's correct.
And you're the director of
Direction. The Sudan Project of Direction.
Right, all right.
Yes, I am. I'm now a director of Sudan Projects at Direct Change. It's an organization, non-profit organization based here in Washington, D.C. I have a family right now. My mother, my sister now in Syracuse, and my wife, my little 5-month daughter. I wrote a book, God Grew Tired of Us. It is telling more about my story. I'm building a medical clinic now in Southern Sudan that is completely 13 room. We have a doctor on the ground. We have 7 nurses there working there. This is it. This is that to really pay back, or not pay, but give something back to the people. The American people have been helping us. So we don't need to be receivers. We also need to be givers. So that's we receive from the American people, and then we also give it to the people who need it the most. And that's why I came up with the idea of building a medical clinic in Africa. This is where there has never been medical clinic.
Well, thank you very much. You're both miracles. We're going to have a candle lighting now in memory of the victims of the Holocaust, as the United States Army Band plays Inscription of Hope, based on words written by Jews on a basement wall in Cologne, Germany, where they were hiding. Staff Sergeant Leanne Hinton is featured here. Thank you. Thank you very much. We were scheduled to have the Polish ambassador to the United States read a letter written by Irena Sendler, a Polish Catholic woman who saved 2,500 Jewish children in Poland during World War II. Unfortunately, Ms. Sendler is very ill and has become ill within the last 2 weeks and was unable to compose the letter. But let me just tell you that in 1943, she was arrested by the Gestapo. She was tortured and sentenced to death. She was saved by an organization that bribed her German guards who were escorting her to her execution. She's been recognized by Yad Vashem as a righteous among the nations, a status confirmed by the Israeli Supreme Court. In 2003, she received the Order of the White Eagle, Poland's highest civilian decoration, and she's been nominated this year for the Nobel Peace Prize. So I just wanted to call attention to her efforts during World War II. Now, as I sit here with the two of you, I ask you, after what you've been through, you must ask yourselves periodically, don't we as humans ever learn any lessons? Why do we keep repeating the past over and over again with these terrible atrocities?
Well, I think that's why it is so important that the survivors continue telling the world, because we are survivors, and because in camp we kept hearing that this couldn't really be happening in this world, in this earth. Human beings couldn't possibly be so cruel to each other. So it is important for me as a survivor to do my obligation and keep talking about it and telling people that it actually did happen and that humans have this ability of not only creating wonderful things, but also hell on earth.
John?
I agree with Ruth that we have to keep talking about all of this. But there's one thing that I'm seeing. The word that led us to be called lost boys today that occurred for a long, 1903. And nobody came for our help for 22 years until 2001, where we came to the United States. The question that I always ask is that, and I also sometimes answering myself, I may say, okay, the Jewish people went through all of this called Holocaust, and then of course there were a lot of ruthless killing of their people. And that's why they came up never again. The Jewish may be very few people in the world, and they may not, maybe they're still struggling with their other things, such as now in Israel or where they are. They may not go to Sudan and help us. But where is the other international community at the time when we were being slaughtered for no reason at all? We have never done anything to anybody else. This is our land. Sudan is our land. What does the Sudan mean? Sudan is the land of the blacks. Why is that the Arab have been really trying to displace us and killing us, and of course been abducting women and girls, young girls? Why? And where was the international community? Why? I know there's never again. And of course, even with the never again, and with the other international community knowing what had happened with the Lost Boys at that time, that is still worried for. Why? Why is the international community? You may not answer me or somebody else, but I just throw my question in the air, trying to see if anybody could answer this. That is still worried for at this point. And we say that we don't need a genocide. I don't know whether we are doing what we are saying.
Well, you will hear in Washington people say, you will hear in Washington, politicians say repeatedly, we can't be the policeman of the world. I read a quote from the New York Times about the Kristallnacht. Nations protested, but there were no repercussions for the Nazi state at that time. How do you respond when you hear people say the United States can't be the policeman of the world?
I basically feel that wherever there is injustice, that we should try to eradicate it, not to try to educate people. They should not hate others because of the difference, color of skin or religion. I think that this is what the United States should be doing.
The United States is currently engaged in a very controversial war in Iraq. It has stretched our Army and our Marine Corps, some say almost to the breaking point. Our troops are being asked to go in time and time again. The Army tour of duty now is 15 months. Where are they going to get the manpower to do this kind of work?
I am not advocating that the United States have to send Marine or the Army to Sudan, to Darfur. I'm not for that right now because, of course, as you just said, America is almost very thin with the troops in Afghanistan and Iraq and somewhere else. I'm not advocating that. That would be a suicide. The thing that I'm advocating is this. When the United States of America get into something like, for example, Saddam Hussein was killing his people and even gassed them with the poisonous, the kind of gas.
The Kurds.
Right. The world will standing there watching. Let's go. Resolution after resolution after resolution after resolution. Nothing was accepted through UN, right? Now, if the United States get into that, now those who were standing watching will say, well, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? This is not the way. Okay, what is the better way to intervene? In 2003, United States, your government, said that what is going on in Darfur is genocide. Chinese say this is not a genocide. Russian saying this is not a genocide. So what is it? Other people say, well, any problem in the world need the leadership of the United States. I agree, but also need the leadership of other countries. What happened with the Sikh party talk? It is now there is kind of like a window of understanding right now, right? And whose leadership is that? That's the China leadership. Why can't they take their leadership in Southern Sudan or in Darfur? Why can't they lead? Why can't they do that? Because they are buying 65% of their gas or oil come from Sudan. That's okay. But can they stop the war in Darfur?
When the United States applies itself to a problem, it's a small problem as compared to Darfur and the Holocaust. I'm thinking about Northern Ireland, where under the Clinton administration, George Mitchell went to Northern Ireland, sat down with the parties, and wouldn't let them go to sleep until they came to an agreement. Now, the two parties who have been at loggerheads for centuries have now formed a government together. Ian Paisley and Martin McGuinness are now in the government in Northern Ireland. I mean, it's possible if you apply enough pressure and enough force and enough reason and a host of other things to a problem, it is possible to get a solution. I mean, you look at Kosovo, you look at Bosnia, it may not be an ideal solution, but at least the genocide has stopped and the killing in Northern Ireland has stopped. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with you, and I think that since the Holocaust, things are being looked at a little bit differently, because during the Holocaust, nobody even wanted to admit what the Germans were doing, and they did know. So I think some things are being done, but more people have to be educated to globally to be able to respect and accept people that are different than you, if there is any hope for the world at all. That's my opinion. I'm not.
I was very happy yesterday when I was, or 2 days, maybe yesterday, the other day, when I saw the Northern Ireland coming together and of course pledged to have a government of national unity, which is good, because that the terror is going to stop. Hopefully God will help them come together, glue their differences so that they can become one people. Because they are one people, that's good, a good thing. But also, the strategies that apply in Northern Ireland cannot necessarily be applied in Darfur.
No, I agree.
So there is other way that need to be, there are ways that need to be done. And one of the ways that of course I heard from many people, and I was saying that of course there will be Olympic 2008 in China. Why can people hear, like the audience or anybody else, saying that it either need to be, of course I heard from other Hollywood people that there is talk of boycotting it. Boycotting it is not the answer to it. Why can other people come and say the Olympic 2008 in China is a genocide Olympic? Try to paint that with a negative thing. Do you think
Chinese don't want to hear that?
they don't want to do that? And then if we do that right now in America here, we put a pressure on them saying that this is a genocide Olympic, it was made in China and something like that. If people go, I think United States, the American people are very good at doing that through their telephone, text messaging, and doing internet thing, and so all of this. This is a genocide. This is a genocide Olympic or something like that. You know, Chinese will leave and change. And that's why I'm saying the strategies used in Northern Ireland could not be used in Darfur or somewhere else.
Of course
Let's use a different one.
Also, something else we haven't talked about is a lot of these conflicts are religiously based and have been going on for centuries, essentially. Ethnic, tribal, religious conflicts. And some of these things are almost impossible to reason your way out of.
And that's why I feel that unless we learn by the past, by our mistakes, by looking away at atrocities, that we let them happen again. I'm not a politician, so I don't quite know how to settle all these different things that are going on in the world. But I do, and I voice and I tell my story because I feel that people should remember all the things that have been done as far as atrocities are concerned and how that can be stopped. And that's why I'm here and speaking about it.
All right. John?
Well, the world today, I guess, is not like the world of yesterday. Many people know that, and I am very happy when I talk to. I've been talking to different schools, and I talk to young people, especially students. And one of my message that I always tell them is that, please, America purposely put together by God, whether you don't believe in God or what or not. This country was purposely put together by God so that it can address something like this, so that it can have no boundaries. And I've been telling people, especially students, that you need to call yourself the citizen of the world, but not only a citizen of the United States. So when you become a citizen of the world, you are concerned of what is going on in Northern Ireland or in Darfur or somewhere else where the war is going on, or in Somalia. So the thing is that let's new generation come up with the new ideas. And of course, you can't fight the old generation, but you have to come up with the new idea because you're a new generation. Then now, I am in America right now. So, but it was very difficult some time ago for somebody to come to America and have have a voice somewhere. Now I can talk and some people will listen to what I'm saying. This is a different world. This is a different America. This is a new America. This is a new world. The world should be one. And wherever you are a citizen of the world. Please, whether you are religious or you're a regular person or you just don't even believe in any God, the call of humanity is one. Whether you believe in anything, call of humanity is one. You are as human as myself. So whatever is bothering me could bother you. So let's lock our hand together so that we can help avoid something that may come again and try to address the current problems.
Need to talk to some of our political leaders, John. Now the band will play It Is Burning, written by the Yiddish poet and songwriter Mordecai Gerbertik. I think I'm pronouncing that. Gerbertik, I think. Am I pronouncing that right? Yeah. Oh, I guess I am. All right. It was written in response to the 1936 pogrom against Jews in Poland. Sergeant Hinton will sing again for us. Thank you.